He was a billionaire CEO, but he deliberately pretended to be disabled and stuck in a wheelchair. And the reason behind it all was his mother, who had just passed away. That day, he went into his mother's old room. To remember her, he sat in her wheelchair and sang her favorite song. That was when a beautiful girl suddenly appeared behind him. Her name was Sarah. She was the new neighbor and needed help moving some boxes. Nick was about to stand up and help her, but Sarah quickly stopped him. She had obviously mistaken him for someone disabled. Nick wanted to explain the truth, but when he looked at the beautiful girl in front of him, he decided to go along with it instead. She gently told him, "If you ever need anything, I'm right next door." The next day, Nick went straight to Sarah's apartment, but when he tried to ring the doorbell, he realized it was placed too high for someone in a wheelchair. So he immediately put on a pitiful expression. The moment Sarah opened the door, he started acting lonely and asked if she wanted to grab lunch together. When he saw his plan working, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. As they sat at the table, Nick politely invited Sarah to dinner as well, but she kept changing the subject, and things slowly became awkward. Just as Sarah was about to leave, Nick almost told her the truth, but the words stopped in his throat. Instead he said, "Even though I'm disabled, I'm actually a billionaire. I own hundreds of companies across Italy and Europe." Sarah wasn't sure if she believed him, but she understood what he was trying to say. So she invited him to visit her family's countryside home that weekend. Nick agreed without hesitation, but the moment he arrived there, he realized Sarah had another reason for inviting him. She wanted to introduce him to her sister Ella. Ella was stunning. She looked like the first ray of sunlight in the morning. The second Nick saw her, his heart skipped a beat, but his smile froze almost instantly. He watched Ella pull a wheelchair out of the car. Nick felt like he'd been struck by lightning. He looked around, and everyone wore these knowing smiles. That was the moment he realized something terrifying. In this little game of love and deception, he was actually the prey. At dinner, they were seated together, but Nick couldn't say a single word. It felt like chains were wrapped around him. After the meal, they were sent outside together to enjoy the scenery. During their conversation, Nick learned that Ella was a violinist and also loved playing baseball. She talked about it naturally, but Nick felt strangely heavy inside. He never could have imagined that this girl would completely change his life. After he got home, he told his friend everything. He couldn't stop praising Ella's beauty, yet insisted he had no feelings for her. His friend laughed and teased him, saying there was no way he could win Ella over. That challenge immediately triggered Nick's competitive side. He left Ella a message right away, asking to see her again. To his surprise, Ella showed up at his company the very next day. Nick panicked and quickly sat on top of his desk. Before she noticed he could actually stand, Ella invited him to her baseball game, and Nick instantly agreed. At the field, he saw a completely different side of her. Her eyes were filled with determination and strength, like she was challenging fate itself. Nick was deeply moved. After the game, he took Ella out for dinner, but she brought him to a gathering for disabled people instead. Nick had no idea how to act, but he couldn't expose himself, so he forced himself to blend in. That night, he woke up from a nightmare. His mind was filled with images of everyone he met there. He couldn't handle living this lie anymore. He felt like he needed to win Ella over quickly and finish the bet once and for all. By coincidence, he came across an online concert announcement. The performer was Ella. He immediately bought a ticket and planned to surprise her. Outside the concert hall, he spotted an old man's electric wheelchair and paid a ridiculous amount of money for it. Then he happily drove himself into the venue. But the moment Ella stepped onto the stage, the entire audience exploded into applause. As the performance began, Ella completely lost herself in the music. At that moment, she looked like a flower blooming under sunlight, confident, radiant, unstoppable. To her, physical limitations seemed no heavier than the wind itself. Nick was shaken once again. For the first time, he understood that true strength had nothing to do with a perfect body. It came from the light inside someone's soul. Overwhelmed with emotion, Nick unconsciously stood up. After the concert, Nick waited for Ella outside. She was genuinely happy to see him. The two of them went to a music restaurant afterward. This time Nick talked nonstop. He had never met a woman so strong and charming before. But slowly, a sadness started growing inside him. He wanted to tell Ella the truth, yet he was terrified of losing her if he did. The guilt twisted inside him more and more. Late that night, they walked through the city streets together. Ella took off her shoes, spread out her arms, and enjoyed the feeling of the wind. Nick gently held her hand and wandered through the streets with her. Their silhouettes blended into the night, like a soft, beautiful poem. Every smile, every glance from Ella made his heart race. Her shy little expressions felt more romantic than any confession. Eventually, they walked into a hotel together. The door to the room, their eyes met. and the air was filled with tension and attraction. Ella completely fell into the sweetness of the moment, never realizing that this seemingly perfect romance had started because of a bet. But by then, Nick had already forgotten his original goal. He constantly called Ella, talked with her about work, and listened to her share the little details of her everyday life. One warm evening, Nick invited Ella to his villa. Under soft candlelight, they drank wine and quietly talked together. Then he pressed a remote control. The floor slowly sank, and water began filling the room. Their ordinary candlelight dinner turned into a magical dinner floating on water. Ella was deeply touched. She never expected Nick to put so much thought into it, just so she could experience the feeling of standing on water again. In that shimmering room, their hearts grew closer than ever before. Unable to resist anymore, they kissed. That night, they officially became a couple. But the deeper their relationship became, the heavier Nick's guilt grew. His secret felt like a giant stone crushing his chest. He couldn't take it anymore. He decided to tell Ella the truth, but every time he saw her, he lost his courage. As Ella played the violin, the sorrow and strength in her music cut through Nick like a blade. He slowly lowered his feet from the wheelchair, determined to stand up and confess everything. But every single time, he backed down at the last second, holding Ella in his arms, his heart twisted with pain. He kept thinking maybe he should wait for the right moment. But then Ella told him something that terrified him even more. She said after her accident left her paralyzed, ex-boyfriend cheated on her behind her back. But what hurt the most wasn't the betrayal, it was the lying. Because more than anything, she hated being deceived. And Nick had been lying to her for so long that he became even more afraid to confess. Trapped between honesty and deception, Nick finally asked his secretary and friend for help. He planned to reveal everything during a dinner gathering. But at the table, his hesitation drove his friend crazy. Sarah unexpectedly ran into Nick's brother at the apartment building. During their conversation, she discovered Nick wasn't disabled at all. Furious, she stormed over and slapped Nick across the face, exposing his lie on the spot. Nick was too guilty to fight back, but Sarah insisted on telling Ella the truth herself. Panicked, Nick jumped out of the wheelchair and chased after her, explained that he lied to everyone, but his feelings for Ella were real. He begged Sarah to let him confess personally, but she refused to listen. Desperate, Nick went to his father for advice. He asked if there was any way to tell Ella the truth without losing her. His father suggested taking Ella to Lourdes, a famous pilgrimage site known for miracles, where many sick people prayed for healing. His father told him that maybe during prayer, Nick could miraculously stand up in front of Ella and save their relationship that way. Sarah warned Ella to stay away from Nick. Ella quietly thought about it. Then suddenly, Nick called and enthusiastically invited her to Lourdes the next day. Sarah couldn't understand why he wanted to go there. In love, some people chase dramatic miracles, but Ella's wish was actually simple. She only wanted love to find her. When she once said she hated liars the most, she was also trying to stop Nick from confessing, because deep down, she knew that once the truth came out, she would leave without hesitation. At the church in Lourdes, just as they prepared to pray, the priest immediately sensed something was wrong with Nick. He pulled Nick aside and sternly told him, "You're not disabled. There's no place for fake miracles here. People come here with faith and hope. If you stand up here, you'll be insulting everyone's belief. That would be unforgivable." Nick stood there speechless. Finally, he quietly asked how the priest knew. The priest answered, "Your shoes." In the end, Nick quietly rolled himself out of the church in the wheelchair. Ella felt crushed and confused. The one miracle she had secretly hoped for, completely fallen apart, and the truth between her and Nick felt ready to shatter at any moment too. Distracted and heartbroken, she failed to notice a speeding truck rushing toward her. At the last second, someone grabbed her hand and pulled her away from death. Ella still chose to call it a miracle, but Nick remained silent. Helpless, Ella quietly turned and walked away. Even as she was about to board the bus, Nick still said nothing, because he had already lied to her once. He didn't want to use another fake miracle to deceive her again. What he didn't realize was that Ella would have accepted that fake miracle anyway. After that, they completely lost contact. Nick's life lost all direction. Even work became meaningless. Without Ella, nothing mattered anymore. Then one day, during a company product presentation, he saw adaptive sports equipment designed for disabled users. Instantly, Ella's face appeared in his mind. He finally couldn't hold back anymore. For love, he decided to be brave one last time. He drove straight to Ella's hometown and confessed everything to her grandmother, desperately asking where Ella was. Seeing how sincere he was, her grandmother finally told him. Following the directions she gave him, Nick intercepted Ella's bus halfway through the trip. In front of everyone's shocked eyes, he walked directly toward Ella. But this was the exact situation Ella never wanted to face. She resisted him from beginning to end. In the end, Nick quietly stepped off the bus. After that, he fell into self-punishment. He pushed his body to the limit, trying to numb the pain inside with physical suffering. The endless training eventually left him collapsed on the floor in exhaustion. And that was when a familiar figure appeared in front of him. Even though Ella still couldn't fully accept the truth, she was willing to open her heart and get to know a completely new Nick, the real Nick, because that was what love truly meant. Not changing someone to fit your world, but accepting each other completely and cherishing what you had together. Even if reality turned out nothing like you imagined, as long as love still remained, it could shine in its own beautiful way.